Here's a speech given by Lubavitcher Rebbe in 1991. Where is it? 1991. Parshas Emor. There's a series of speeches that the Rebbe gave, like in the year, 2 years before he had a stroke, which made it impossible for him to speak. So these are like the Rebbe's, they say, commands to us before we go into battle. And it's talking about Moshiach. Moshiach. Now, I know we've said this a lot of times, and we'll have to say it again. Mashiach is the goal of creation. The Mashiach is the goal of Judaism. Judaism is to implement the goal of creation. Mashiach is going to be a person, human being, just like Moses, like King David, and he's going to turn the attention of all mankind to the Creator and his Torah. 7 Noahide commandments for the non-Jews. And when all mankind feels the Creator, then the world will be much less confusing. And everyone will be very happy to be connected to the truth. And that is in our hands, says the Rebbe. It's in our hands to bring Mashiach. That's also called this big change in the world is called Geula. Geula means redemption. I guess that's how it's translated, redemption. But Geula means like, I guess, redemption, freedom from slavery. That's Geula. We are enslaved by our own ignorance and unawareness of what God is. And Geula means we will be freed from our ignorance. We'll start to realize that we're creations and we're important to God. Okay, so Rebbe says that Geula is really much closer than what we think. In fact, it's infinitely close. All we have to do is do one more good thing. Why does this happen? 1 second. 1 minute. Why is this happening over here? What's this? Huh? Oh. All right, there we go. Okay. So the word for exile that we're in now, the state of ignorance and unconsciousness, whatever that we're in now, is called Gola. That's called exile. And in order to transform the exile into redemption, all you have to do is add one letter. The difference between Gola, that's Gola, and Geula is just this letter Alef. See, letter Alef? Just the letter Aleph. Geula, same word. That's the redemption. That's the good word. And Gola, that's exile. That's the bad word. And all the difference between them is just one little letter Aleph. But Tosfos Aleph, just Ben El. This expresses the whole content and the meaning of this Geula, of this redemption that we are working for more than any of the other languages of redemption. Remember, we talked about that in the Torah portion, Va'era, which is in the book of Exodus, beginning where? I'll tell you where. The book of Exodus, here it says, here we go. The book of Exodus, here, I'll tell you where it is. The book of Exodus, chapter 1 minute. Here we go. Chapter 6. Chapter 6, the book of Exodus, right? Chapter 6, sentence number 2. It starts over there. The God says more what we're going over here is right after that, in the sentences that come after, God says, don't worry, Moses, I'm going to take you out of Egypt. I'm going to redeem you. I'm going to free you. I'm going to exonerate you, whatever it is. Hotzeti, hitzalti, ga'alti, lakachti. 4 languages. And from those, the Judaism has chosen all the time the word geula. It's only one of the 4 languages of freedom, of redemption. And the reason for that is that the word geula stresses the nearness of this amazing, wonderful state of being to us. Huh? Now we are in exile. All we have to do is add one little letter and the whole thing will flip around. Something like a person who's unconscious and suddenly they give him a massage or something and boom, he comes back to consciousness again. Says the Rebbe, the whole idea of Geula is that the world itself will not change. It'll just be like turning on the lights or like changing your glasses or something. The world doesn't change, but the awareness of what the world really is will change. The godliness in the world will be revealed in every detail. This is the idea of Geula, of redemption of every detail of the exile. The Geula, the redemption, does not in any way negate the service of exile. We'll still have houses, families, wives, children, friends, money. Everything will be the same, but it'll be filled with godliness. We'll only do, think, say what's in tune with truth. All we have to do is bring in the Alef, the Alufa Shalom, godliness, into the world. That God will be we have to show that God is the owner and he's the conductor of everything in the world, even in the time of exile. That'll change everything. This is made by means of the service in exile. Just like the word Geula is built, most of the letters are gold. I mean, maybe an example of this I can just say. Now, they had this war with the Hamas from October the 7th. So they took a lot of Jews into captivity, like 1,000 Jews. I don't remember what it was. They took a lot of them into captivity, into imprisonment. They raped the women. They killed a lot of them. But there's some of them that they just kept there because they realized that they could be used for exchange or whatever. They didn't. So a lot of them stayed in, but they kept them in the worst conditions possible. The worst conditions possible. And they starved them and they kept them in dark rooms for long times. So several of them got out. They got out. Especially Trump made this whole thing. In any case, they got out. They got out of exile. How many got out? 30, 40, whatever it was, 50 got out. And so a lot of, interestingly, they stopped interviewing them. They stopped interviewing. Why? Because the media in Israel and the education in Israel and the government in Israel is very anti-religious, right? They're willing to hold their nose and let some of the religious people into the government because they have a big population, but they're very, very anti-religious, and they consider this, the Chabad and these other people going out putting on tefillin as a big, how do you say, intruders, like aliens coming to destroy their non-religious bubble that they've put themselves in. Okay, anyway, let's not talk about that. Let's just talk about the other part. What I'm trying to say is that why did they stop interviewing them? Because a lot of them came back. They came back. In fact, all of them. They came back and they said, listen, I was tortured and I started to talk to God. And one of them said, I said, God, listen, I first of all, I'm very grateful to you that you kept me alive. And I want to know something, God. Listen, you create everybody, you do everything. Nobody says, ask what you need. Tell me, what do you want, God? What do you need? That's what he said on television. What do you need, God? What do you need me to do? I started putting on tefillin, he says. So from that, one person saying something good, it had a tremendous effect on the normal youth that were living their lives. What do you have to have Shabbat for, or kosher? Shabbat is like every other day. Kosher is like every other food. Come on, let's start. And suddenly they started to realize, hey, look here's a normal person, and he's talking normal. And true, he had a big traumatic experience, but on the other hand, maybe that just shook him up to what's really going on. And how did he decide to express this? By putting on tefillin, that Jews have been doing this for like 3,000 years. And they're not doing it because they were put into dark rooms or they were tortured. They were doing it because Moses did it. The Lubavitcher Rebbe put on tefillin. These people put on tefillin because they really, truly believed and they felt that God exists. So one person saying A normal person saying, I felt that God really exists and I'm going to do his commandments. I just want to do what he wants. I don't want anything in return. The fact that I'm being created is big, not for me. Oh, all of the media said, get this guy off television, get him off. But it was too late. It was too late. It had its effect. And more and more Jews in Israel are starting to do commandments because they're Jews. And they feel that God is not a religious item or topic. God has created everybody. God is just infinitely real and is infinitely good. Why does all these bad things and terrible things? That's a big question. That's a big question. But the question, it's good to ask the question. And we have to. And Moses asked the question. But on the other hand, let's not ignore the good things. God is creating us. He gave us the Torah. We can do what God wants without any thought of getting repaid. God is creating us. That's good enough paying for free. So that's the idea of putting an Alef into the exile. A little bit of light all of a sudden flips the whole thing around. Now, these people that they started to become religious, they didn't stop, their jobs or stop their families or stop having a good time or stop enjoying music. They just changed a little bit. Now they don't enjoy music on Shabbat. They sing instead of playing. They're just interested in doing what God wants. Their business now is going to be according to what God wants. They'll put a mezuzah on the door. They're going to be honest. That's putting the Alef into the exile. Putting the Alef. On the other hand, let's go the other way. There's a lot of religious people that don't have the Alef into the exile. It could be they have a business and they're not so honest. It could be that they're doing everything just for themselves. They're not doing it to make an Alef in the world. They enjoy the exile. The exile is okay. Not so bad. Right? You have a nice house, you have a nice family, you have a nice this. And they're not interested so much in the Alef, in the godliness in it. So the whole world, according to Chassidut, always brings up that Moshiach is going to make the tzaddikim do tshuva. The tzaddikim, that they feel God all the time. Moshiach is going to make everybody aware that whatever we feel of godliness is nothing compared to what we could feel. A little more light, a little more, because God is infinite. The good is infinite. Once we start to reveal a little bit of it, it's like, Grandpa, all of a sudden they thought he was dead. He was suddenly comes back to life. That's amazing. Okay, how he talks, how he thinks, how he moves, that's going to have to work on that. But the thing is, he's alive. He's alive. It's the same thing, the Geula, to enliven the Jews. Suddenly the Jews become aware, I'm a Jew. Okay, what does that mean? What is it? Okay, that's another aspect of becoming alive. There's infinite depth to this Alef that you put in. And the Rebbe is going to talk about that. Here we go. Ready? Let's talk about a little bit of this right before the redemption is supposed to come any instant. The whole novelty of the Geula, this redemption, namely putting the Alef into the exile, in two ways we said before. Excuse me. In the two ways that we mentioned, to show that God is the ruler over the world, Alufo Shel Olam, and also to show the miraculousness of God in the world. This we can see immediately in the first time that the Jews experienced this thing, which is called going out of Egypt. When the Jews got out of Egypt, there was never been anything like that in the history of the world, and there never will be anything again. And Judaism is based on this. The whole entire Jewish nation were prisoners in Egypt for 200 years. And God himself took them all out. God made all sorts of plagues and split the sea and gave them bread from heaven and gave them this. So that there was no room for doubt that God exists and that God cares. God cares. That's Geula. Never happened before in the history of the world. Never happened afterwards. That God himself revealed himself to one whole entire nation publicly and gave them a book, his will. Right? All the other religions are based on a few people. A few people, one person, 2 people, 10 people, and they got a book which was given, they found it, or it was they revealed it afterwards, 100 years after these 10 people died, whatever. Judaism says that God himself, the creator of the universe, made Geula. He revealed himself, took the Jews out of their ignorance, out of their imprisonment, and he actually taught them. He chose them. There's nothing. That's called Geula. That's called Geula. Revelation of God. Revelation of God in the world to everybody. Okay, so let's examine this. This is what we're waiting for, something like this to happen, but it's going to be infinitely more. Any second it's supposed to happen. Any second it's supposed to happen. First of all, the Jews should not forget their identity. It depends and depended on God. God chose them. God took them from Egypt. God did miracles. God gave them food. Took them through the desert. God gave them the Torah. God. And the Jewish people revealed open relationship. There are ups and downs, but nevertheless, the whole thing is God. That's the whole essence of the Jewish people, the revelation of God. Revelation of God, that's called Geula. That's the essence of Judaism, and it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again. That's the first of the 10 commandments, is I am God that took you out of Egypt. First of the 10 commandments that tell you that it's going to happen again. This future redemption is recognized by the fact, the fact that Shekal ben Israel, all the Jewish people went out of Egypt, like it says, our youth, our elders, our sons, our daughters, and all Jewish people, they came out completely with all of their possessions, like it says in the prophet, Kasbim v'zahav mitam. It says in Isaiah that the Jews will go out of exile and their money will be with them. And the Jewish people took all of their possessions and all the money that they had in Egypt. They took it out by Yishalu Mitzrayim Kli Kesef. They took out vessels of silver, vessels of gold, garments. It says the garments were worth more than the silver and the gold. And they emptied out Egypt. They took everything. Like a big silo that has no more grain in it, and like a fish pond that hasn't got any fish. They took everything out. They even took out non-Jews that wanted to convert it, wanted to be with the Erev Rav. In other words, going out of Egypt wasn't just that they left Egypt, they broke out. They broke out, made a breakout from the concentration camp, or no, they took all of the possessions of Egypt with them. Al Yadei, by means of bringing this Alef, when God revealed himself in the exile, so the Jews were able not only to free themselves, but also to free all the possessions of the Egyptians, which had been previously used to enslave them, now are used to Jewish people to enhance them. That's the reason why God created the whole world and why he gave all these riches to Egypt, in order that the Jewish people should refine them by means of taking them out of Egypt and using them to serve the Creator. But until that God gave favor in the eyes in the eyes of the Egyptians, the Jewish people found favor in the eyes of the Egyptians, to the degree that even what the Jews did not request from them, they would give to them. The Egyptians themselves. The Jews took all the money and all the gold and all the silver, and the Egyptians would say, hey, wait, 1 second. So no, we're leaving. No, I want to give you my ring. Forgot to give it the ring. Forgot to give it the ring. Here. And the little kids were saying, here, I have a doll I want to give to you. No, if it's not gold or silver, or it's none of the inside of it, there's hidden rubies. Take it, everything. And the Egyptians were tremendously rich. The Egyptians forced the Jews to take their possessions. Malamed, we learn this. That they forced the Jews to take their riches. The Jews said, listen, we're leaving on a long journey. It's heavy enough. I can't take all of your stuff. Listen, please do me a favor. Come on. Just take one necklace, one more necklace. What's it? Take it from me. Come on. Why is it that the Egyptians, why is it that they forced Jews to take their possessions? Why? Atzivoy, the commandment that the Jews should borrow from the Egyptians, it said to the Jewish people, not to the Egyptians. Why? Why did the Egyptians force? They weren't commanded to do it. After God broke Egyptian by means of the 10 plagues, the Egyptians should have been angry. Why all of a sudden the Egyptians, it says that they like the Jews. The Egyptians would have said, you Jews are leaving, please get out of here. You've done enough for me. You ruined my crops, you ruined my house, you ruined everything. Right? What did the Egyptians say? No. Oh, we like you, Jewish people. Hey, you're going on a long journey. Hey, listen, maybe you could use my earring. Maybe you could use my bracelet, right? And I got a walking stick with a gold head on it and a big diamond on the top. Take it, please take it, take it. How am I going to walk? I'll deal with it. Don't worry about it. Ella, so we see that the Egyptians they liked the Jews. The Jews had just destroyed the whole country, and they liked them. They gave them all their riches. Ella, even since that the future redemption, what does it mean? Prusho, the meaning is, just one second, the meaning is, Hageula Aliyah L'Mitzrayim, it elevated the Egyptians. By recognizing that God is the king of the universe and that he's the leader, he's the conductor of the universe. And the Egyptians, because they were wise people, they were chachamim, as the Egyptians were tremendous geniuses in the spiritual worlds, they understood and they felt that the Jewish people are representing the creator of the universe. And the best the Egyptians could do was understand the universe, spiritual, physical. So the Egyptians were so enamored by the Jews being connected to the creator. So it says, even though that they didn't understand, it says, but Mazda, the souls of the Egyptians, they felt something was going on. Yodu Mitzrayim, the Egyptians know that I am God. Look, and this was tzorich la'asot. It had to be done actually, and it was done. Not that the Jews had to force the Egyptians, but the Jews, the Egyptians wanted to. They enjoyed serving God. The Ritzonam, they knew it was for their benefit. Here, Jew, you can do more with this ring than I can do. Therefore, all of a sudden, the Egyptians, they loved the Jews. They realized that the Jews, they didn't destroy Egypt. It was the creator of the universe was destroying Egypt. And the Jews were the servants of the creator of the universe. And they realized it was being done for their own good. Listen, if God wanted to, he could have just killed all the Egyptians in 1 second, right? Didn't have to do anything, just stop everybody's heart from beating for about a half an hour, and that's it. Then the Jews, they could have done whatever they wanted to. The Egyptians realized that the source of their life and the source of their being comes from the God of Israel. And therefore, they were grateful to God. How can you show your gratitude to God? By showing gratitude to his people. Even what the Jews did not request, the Egyptians would give them. Similarly, we also see the same thing. We see a second thing that we said in the redemption that's made from Gola, that only by means of going into exile in Egypt, that the Jews, it says, God said to Abraham, in the covenant between the pieces, God said to Abraham that I am going to send the Jews into Egypt. They're going to be slaves. And they are going to Ivdum v'inosam, and the Egyptians are going to make the Jewish people in their servants, and they're going to torture them. And by means of the Jews being tortured and enslaved for all this time, as this was brought a tremendous elevation in all of Egypt. which Egypt was the lowest place in the world, suddenly it became the highest. That the Jewish people took out all of the riches in Egypt to use to serve God. If the Jews had not gone into Egypt, it says that they couldn't, they couldn't take all the gold and the silver and elevate it to be used for the Creator. So we see that there was a big benefit to the Jewish people going into Egypt and suffering there. Even though, I mean, if you ask me, the suffering was unnecessary, and Moses also pretty much agreed with me. He said, why are you making these people suffer, the Jewish people suffer? So, okay, that's a good question, and I don't know if there's an answer. God didn't give an answer to Moses that it was at least, how do you say, palatable, the answer. But nevertheless, we'll see that it is worthwhile. And again, the reason that we don't understand it is because we judge everything according to the assumption, the axiom that I really exist and the world revolves around me somehow or other. If it's good to me, it's good. If it's bad to me, it's bad. So I can only appreciate things which are visceral, what do you want to call it, that are immediate. I want it all and I want it now. Things that are immediate, I can appreciate. But things that are outside of my sense of time and space, that type of good, it's very sort of hard to comprehend, especially God. So now it's understood, relevant to the whole idea of all of the redemptions that are going to come after, that came after, and that are going to come, the big one, until the future redemption that's going to be complete. Like it says, going out of Egypt, I will show you miracles. There was the miracle, the redemption in Hanukkah, where we were freed from the Greeks. Then there was the redemption of Purim, right? That was another redemption. We were freed from the there's different opinions what that exactly is, but okay. Then there's the redemption, we were freed from Bavel, from Babylon. And of course, the redemption, we were freed from Egypt. Al Yedei, by means of this, we reveal the Alufo Shalolam. We reveal the master of the world in the world, and it's only by means of our service in the exile. The exile itself, the suffering, that's what brings about this amazing revelation and elevation that's going to be just like it was in Egypt. We had the suffer in Egypt, but in the end, there was an incomparable revelation and redemption and the gift that was given to us, a revelation of the essence of God to the whole entire Jewish people. So somehow or other that made it worthwhile, as we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow.